One, Donald Trump serves fries at McDonald's, and for some reason, this has just caused people to either freak out, enjoy, or freak out in anger. Plus, Kamala Harris mocks Christians. 2, will Donald Trump appear on Joe Rogan? Why not appear on Call Her Daddy? A conversation with senior advisor to the 2024 Trump campaign, Tim Murtaugh. 3, fans in Austin litter the field with water bottles and win. Fans in Cleveland celebrate an injury to Deshaun Watson and lose. Keep it classy, sports. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page, always on demand, by subscribing on Apple or on Spotify, or if you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube, head on over to the Will Cain Show page on Facebook or YouTube. Hit subscribe, jump into the comments. We'll bring you into the conversation. You become a member of the Willisha. It was an exciting weekend, from McDonald's to football, but it threatened to upend the career of at least one individual intimately connected to the Will Cain Show. It's not someone running for president. But Young Establishment James and Two-A-Days Dan, I have on occasion threatened disciplinary action. I have on occasion threatened both of you with the unemployment line. But I would say that neither of you have ever risen to the level or the insecurity of a pink slip as Tinfoil Pat. He was in rare form on Saturday. And as Texas was losing to Georgia, he decided, in all sense of objectivity and sense of justice, and perhaps his overarching belief in life that everything is a conspiracy, to lob a ton of insults at Texas. I just want to share with you guys some of what went down on social media. This is what your boy spent time communicating to the public, okay?
Dude.
While Texas was losing, yeah, that's right. He was very active on X, which is the undoing of I don't know how many careers. But as Texas was losing to Georgia, there was an infamous moment. For those of you that weren't watching and perhaps were too tuned in to either maybe a Trump rally or a Yankees ALCS victory, now headed to the World Series to take on the Los Angeles Dodgers. The rest of the world was watching Texas and Georgia. And there was a horrific call by the referees. It was objectively horrific, from the announcers in the booth to the fans in the stands. It was potentially, in that moment, a game-changing call. We'll get into that a little bit later here on the Will Cain Show. But the fans in the stands were livid. They were very, very angry with this decision by the referees. And they let them know. And they threw water bottles on the field. Now, in one of the most shocking things that I've ever seen, the referees huddled together and changed the call. They got back together, and they got it right. By any objective metric, they got the call right. And I think there's an interesting discussion that we'll have a little bit later on whether or not you should do so under such circumstances and the precedent that it sets, for fan behavior and the ability to impact the outcome of a game. But the producer of the Will Cain Show took it a little bit further. Tinfoil Pat went to Twitter, and he started saying things like they should have gotten an extra 15-yard penalty and had to forfeit the game. The Longhorns should have forfeited the game. Because of water bottles on the field. Yeah, but he was just getting warmed up, Two-A-Days. He was just getting warmed up. Then he says, and now you can pitch a fit and get a call reversed. That's modern-day college football for you when you have your rich daddy's oil money. Now that's deep. That's psychological. That's some Florida State Seminoles scar tissue. And it's also stupid, which I had to. And you guys know I'm not very active on X. James thinks it's one of the big failings, and he's right about my career in this show. But that even inspired me. I said, hey, dummy, nobody has rich daddy's oil money. They have great granddaddy's oil money. Oil, Patrick, is, there are still some modern day, I guess, not wildcatters, but energy entrepreneurs. But anyone that you're referencing its great granddaddy hit the oil patch in the 1930s. Okay, so your insults need. Yeah. Well, It just shows. You squinted so hard in your conspiracy that you saw everything blurry. And then he went on. Face mask could probably throw some more bottles on the field. And then he keeps going, wow, Texas has ACC refs help with them tonight.
Dude, who hurt you?
He finally concludes with, say one nice thing about Texas. And then he says, I like how the grass is different, green, Texas shape underneath the logo at midfield. Huh? At some point in his tirade, I told him about how thin the ice is in the middle of the pond. I told him, you're going to get fired. Like, you keep this up, and it's going to be curtains for tinfoil Pat. And by the way, Patrick, if we're just doing this, like, in the end, when you get fired from this job, from your job in media, it will be because of X.
Could be. I don't know. I'm usually play it pretty safe.
Not there.
No.
But out there.
I don't think so.
I figured you wouldn't be on X. I wouldn't put it in the group chat where you might be. And so, but then you go on X. The one time you go on X.
Will sees more
this was
than
our way of
Will sees more than we know, I think, than we realize.
I'm probably more of a lurker than a contributor to X.
I'm going to defend Patrick
but
here.
I do have a bad habit. I have a bad habit, I would say, of watching games with X open. Do you guys all do that? Do you guys watch with X?
Definitely.
And
that's the best part.
I'm not sure, James, it's an enhancement feature as much as it's a distraction. It's like, it's kind of fun because you feel like, okay, I'm in the bar, the virtual bar, and we're all hanging out talking. But like, if we were in a bar and Patrick was doing this, he's going to end up in a bar fight.
Punched.
I mean, he is going
broken nose, broken jaw.
Yeah, absolutely. That's X for you right there. A bunch of bravery that is never in person. So, still employed, as I say. We're going to break down that call and that game, along with the Yankees-Dodgers World Series in a really shameful, I mean, you can call me a hypocrite and we'll break it down, but a shameful moment in Cleveland as they celebrated the Achilles blow-up of Deshaun Watson. That's all coming up a little bit later on the Will Cain Show. Plus, Trump 2024 senior campaign advisor Tim Murtaugh. Let's ask him, is Trump going to go on Joe Rogan? And why doesn't he just go ahead in his attempt to appeal to women to go on Call Her Daddy? That's all coming up in a little bit here on the Will Cain Show. But let's get started with story number one. Big weekend, at least when it comes to when it turns to campaign, pageantry, staging, the emotional aspect of convincing someone you deserve to be president of the United States. In what turned out to be, on the surface, a very superficial moment, seems to have been the moment that rallied much of the base for Donald Trump and created a collective freakout for not just many on the left, but those in legacy media. And that is Donald Trump visiting a McDonald's and serving fries. Here's a little of Trump with an apron interacting with customers.
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Mr.
Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much
You
for
are not
everything you're
ordinary.
doing.
I can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
So that's Trump interacting with drive-through customers as he hands them bags of fries and other McDonald's items. He's also hanging out with the McDonald's workers talking. And I'll tell you the way I internalize this, the way I see it, which I'm pretty honest about you. I try to be at all times about my own personal biases, but I also think we're talking about an inherently subjective thing here. I'll tell you, I think this observation is fairly objective. He's incredibly personable. He's incredibly good in terms of, we always talk about political talent. What is political talent? I don't know. The ability to think on your feet, the ability to interact with regular Americans. And it's pretty shocking for a guy that was born probably with several $100 million, is worth, I don't know, let's just put the over under at a couple billion, whose entire life has lived in New York City, to be able to step into environments that on the surface are incredibly foreign and interact incredibly natural. I have this conversation, it feels like a lot during commercial breaks on Fox and Friends Weekend. Like, what is political talent? And I don't know, but whatever it may be, and you can see it, and you know it when you can't see it, whatever it may be, he has it. It's there with Donald Trump. And I think he comes off incredibly in this environment endearing. Now, the left doesn't like this at all, and they're on a bit of a, well, I don't know what, fact-finding mission. The story today is this was a staged environment, that all of the drive-through participants were pre-screened, they were Trump supporters, that the McDonald's wasn't open, in fact, that they closed it for this campaign event, and I just can't believe this is the subject of a CNN Daniel Dale fact check. Of course, he didn't give up his run for president to work at McDonald's. And of course, a candidate, a former president, subjected to 2 attempts on his life, survival of 2 assassinations, is not going to just take random customers through the drive-thru. Secret Service and the campaign are going to pre-screen those who drive up to the window and are within 1 foot distance of Donald Trump. I don't really know what kind of investigative research or revelation that might be to say it was staged, but you know what's staged? Politics, campaigns. And you're still in an environment where you're interacting with ordinary Americans who say, thank you for interacting, I'm just an ordinary American. And his response is, no, you're not ordinary. I also think McDonald's is pretty interesting. Well, here, guys, I have a curiosity. When's the last time you've been to a McDonald's? Like, I would say my last time at McDonald's is a breakfast order on Fox and Friends Weekend. So I have had a sausage, egg, and cheese I would say in the last 3 months, because Hegseth loves him some McDonald's, and, he's pretty healthy, but he likes to have some fast food. Outside of that, like the last time I had a Big Mac and fries or a quarter pounder and fries, I mean, it's years and years. I'm just curious, when's the last time you guys, just go around the horn really quickly, starting with tinfoil. When's the last time you were at a McDonald's?
I'm a fast food junkie, so
this morning.
But McDonald's is lower on the totem pole. So I mean, I think it's been the last 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
I have a craving right now for a chicken Big Mac. So
probably a few months ago.
Chicken Big Mac.
I only eat it on road trips.
2 days.
I only eat it on road trips. That's about it. Like when we're traveling somewhere long and you need something quick, that's about it. So probably 5 months ago.
You're young, James. I mean, there's got to be a late night
Yeah.
for you stop at McDonald's.
In terms of burgers, years ago. Late night's usually more pizza, but I do really like their getting like a breakfast sandwich and a Diet Coke there.
That's good.
Well, Tinfoil Pat sent us a thread this morning about the evolution of McDonald's over the last half century. It is pretty fascinating. First of all, I lived in New York for 15 years, and that's really going to paint your impression of McDonald's, because New York McDonald's are really gross. They really are. They're one step up from a homeless shelter. But that's just a fact. I don't know what it is.
They have people holding the doors for you when you go in. It's very nice treatment.
Wow.
It's the same down here too.
But I don't know if they just let people hang out at McDonald's in New York or what it is. But it's a. How about this? McDonald's holds a place of nostalgia for all Americans. Okay, at least all Americans. I would say my age. I would probably think even people 10 years younger than me. We had birthday parties at McDonald's as kids growing up. McDonald's wasn't a foreign concept, right? But for that matter, neither was Burger King, all of them. But somewhere in the last 20 years, and I don't know if this is a product of a change in McDonald's or a change in me or a change in society, but it totally got extricated from my diet. And I think getting married was part of that, because your wife is the one usually, it's like, what are you talking about? We're not eating McDonald's, right? I remember like fast food. For me, once I got to college, fast food for us morphed to Jack in the Box. That was a very popular thing to do, either late night or we would even go after water polo practice in California. We'd just go scarf down McDonald's or Jack in the Box. And then it moved to Taco Bell, I would say after school like late night became Taco Bell, and now that's out as well. And all of them carry this feeling of, I just did something gross. They do. And I don't think that's elitism. I think it has become the overriding marketing thought for most Americans about a lot of these fast food chains. I will tell you, there is one fast food chain that retains its place because America wants fast food. We want it for convenience and we want it for taste. I think it will have a place. But that's what I'm telling you. Something changed with McDonald's where it became unacceptable, unhealthy, And by the way, I think that each of us, if we're being honest, understands that. Like, it's processed, it's highly processed. You don't feel good after it. You take down a ton of calories, and you're super hungry within a short period of time afterward. So, but there's one. I'm just curious if you guys, like, my boys still want to go, and they want to go to one, and my wife will take them to one, and it's a totally acceptable, like, meal replacement option.
Chick-fil-A.
I'm just curious if you guys, James, what'd you say?
Chick-fil-A.
Absolutely. Chick-fil-A is McDonald's of the 80s, including birthday parties, which would not happen at a Chick-fil-A's, but would be catered by a Chick-fil-A.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, man. That's a totally acceptable food option. Yeah. Nuggets or a number one, all over the place. If you went to a party and they had Chick-fil-A's in their sacks, people would be excited. Now, I will say I live in Texas. There's one more that my boys go to on their own that they love, and it's in the same genre. And it's not just in Texas. It's all over now. But
Raging Cajuns?
Can you guess what that one might be?
Raising Canes.
You're in the right thing. I think you're just getting the name wrong. Raising Cane's is incredibly popular.
You should definitely do something with
Raging Cajuns is a college mascot. Now, Raising Cane's is
I've never had that.
And look, a lot of this chicken's it's a vehicle for the sauce. Almost all this chicken stuff is vehicle for the sauce. But I do think it's interesting what's happened to McDonald's. And Patrick, you pointed out in this text thread, Trump at McDonald's is actually, as much as it is a troll of Kamala Harris and whether or not she worked at McDonald's, as much as it is a play to middle-class Americans, I think it's a nostalgia play. I think that's true. I think it's almost tied to Make America Great Again. It's that place that in our lives that McDonald's held. And by the way, it was pretty unifying, right? We all loved it. And I almost think that's what's beyond his own personal skill and the way it made him accessible and endearing. I think that's what happened. And I don't know why the left is so upset about it being staged or what. There's an inordinate amount of anger targeted at this moment in a campaign. Now, Kamala Harris revealed some anger at a rally over the weekend where she was confronted, this caught my attention as well, where she was confronted with protesters, pro-life protesters, but they had an interesting thing to say. We're going to play this for you. I will tell you afterwards, if it's not audible, what exactly the protester yelled when she responds, "You're at the wrong rally."
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
All right, that was in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So two protesters, two students at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse yell, "Christ is King, Jesus is Lord." They are there on protesting as pro-lifers. We had the two students on Fox and Friends Weekend. They said other things like, before that clip, abortion is a sacrament of Satan. They clearly had a position and they wanted to protest in favor of that position. Now, I try to be fair and I try to think, okay, when she's standing on that stage in a room full of thousands, did she, approximately, by the way, 2,500, did she hear exactly what they said? She certainly internalized that they were pro-life. But for her to respond in the face of people saying Christ is King and Jesus is Lord, that you're at the wrong rally, how about this? I'm going to start with this. At the very least, when she walks off the stage, a campaign manager says, you know, they said Jesus is Lord before you told them they were at the wrong rally. And the response has to be an HBO Veep style Julia Louis-Dreyfus, like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But at a maximum, that's a minimum. At a maximum, if that's the best she can do, actually, here's a medium. If that's the best she can do, thinking on her feet in the moment, it's absolutely a campaign killer. And at a maximum, if that's what she means with knowledge of what they had to say, it should be over, campaign killed. There is no Democratic candidate in the history of the United States, including Barack Obama and Joe Biden, that would have responded in that moment in that way. There is no Democratic candidate that would have kicked out an openly Christian message from a rally for Democrats. For that matter, there's no Democratic candidate that would have kicked out pro-life sentiment from a Democratic rally. There has been, although diminishing, a place for pro-life Democrats. So again, at a minimum, she's saying, again, I don't know what she could see. I don't know what she could hear, but I only know what was communicated. That she was banishing pro-lifers from that rally, from her run for president. But again, at maximum, she's banishing an openly Christian message at a rally, at a campaign run for president. At any other point in American history, and people like to respond, how many different campaign killing moments based upon precedent have been uttered by Donald Trump? We're well past that. But at any point in American history, somebody saying this in the face of Jesus as Lord would absolutely kill the campaign, especially when you compare it to the way she responded the very same week over a protester in support of Palestinians. Listen to this.
19,000 people dead. 19,000 children are dead. You gotta call them. 19,000 children are dead. You won't call them. I love you.
So, listen, what he's talking about, it's real. And so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today, but it's real, and I respect his voice.
That's a protester in support of Palestinians wearing a kippah and saying 19,000 children are dead. And at first she says, that's not what I'm here to talk about. He's escorted out of the gathering. And then she says, but I respect his voice. What he's talking about is real, and I respect his voice. And I just ask you to put those two moments side by side. The way one protester is treated and responded to versus one who yells Jesus is Lord, and how those two guys were responded and how they were treated. That is an indictment of the modern day run for president as a Democrat. And then there's Donald Trump. The reason that I think, again, that Donald Trump did so well at McDonald's is I think that the man is incredibly comfortable in his own skin. The other moment being spoken about on CNN, on MSNBC, as evidence that Donald Trump is either unwell or unfit, is at a rally, he talked about, well, Arnold Palmer.
Arnold Palmer was all man, and I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. This man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. I had to say it.
So he's there referencing one of the greatest golfers of all time and what he's packing. And that, I mean, this is a very serious issue for Jake Tapper. This is a very serious moment, which I have to tell you, Democrats, media, if you think this is that big of a deal, I think that's evidence of why you're missing the boat. Why you're missing the boat with men, why you're missing the boat on the appeal of Donald Trump, and why you're missing the boat with America. I have to tell you, and I'm going to ask you guys for another quick poll. I'm going to give you it. Okay, for me, 8 out of 10 dudes. 8 out of 10 dudes I know in possession of that story would tell that story, okay? I don't know how to say this, but this is the way guys talk. This is the way guys talk. Okay, we're going to deepen it in a moment. But I'm just going to ask you guys for a quick poll. I'm giving it 8 out of 10. Tinfoil?
Yeah, easily.
2 days?
Yes, sure. I want to plead the fifth, but yeah,
No,
sure.
I want to know.
Yep.
I want a number of your friends. You're pleading the fifth on behalf of your friends.
Yeah.
I want to know how many of your friends would tell this story.
6 out of 10.
Okay, all right. Little more pretentiousness in the Brooklyn brunch crew
Wow.
for 2 a days, Dan.
Wow.
Go ahead, James.
Not in polite company. I'm struggling to think of a friend who wouldn't tell such a story.
Of course.
Okay, so, all right, that leads us to a deeper point, in polite company. All right, here's what I think's happening. First of all, I think these rallies are sources of entertainment for him and the crowd. I don't think it's your normal political rally from the past half century. Secondarily, I think he's really comfortable. He's really comfortable in his own skin at this point, and you're getting like unprecedented levels of authenticity. Like you would get that version of Donald Trump at his country club. You're getting that version of Donald Trump in his race for president. I, for one, appreciate that authenticity. And you could say that's not the way you should talk if you're running for president. I'm just telling you, I'm starving for some reality and for some authenticity. And if you think this is a big, bad, ugly, my suggestion is you have been at too many Brooklyn brunch crews over the past couple of decades.
Hey.
You've been too cloistered inside CNN green rooms over the past couple of decades. You have been out of touch with men. You've been out of touch with America. All right, how is it going? Let's talk about whether or not, in what would be an incredibly authentic environment, Donald Trump is going to go on Joe Rogan, and whether or not he needs to make inroads with women, and whether or not, therefore, he should go on something like Call Her Daddy. We're going to talk to senior campaign advisor to the Trump campaign coming up on The Will Cain Show. An interview with Joe Rogan would be +1 in the polls, according to Ryan Edwards on YouTube. It's The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com. On the Fox News YouTube channel, like Ryan Edwards, you can subscribe to The Will Cain Show by clicking on the text description underneath this live stream. There's a little button for The Will Cain Show. Hit subscribe, and you can always jump into the comments, become a part of the show. Same thing over on Facebook. And if you're listening on terrestrial radio, just head on over to Spotify or Apple, hit subscribe. You can catch up on The Will Cain Show throughout the week. Joining us now is the senior campaign advisor to Trump 2024. He's also the author of Swing Hard in Case You Hit It. Tim Murtaugh joining us on The Will Cain Show. Hey, Tim.
Will, how you doing? Good to be with you.
I'm doing well. I'm glad to have you with us here on The Will Cain Show. Let's start with what I've been teasing. I'm curious. There's been all these rumors, Tim, about a negotiation, a potential invitation, Donald Trump appearing on Joe Rogan. There's been similar, by the way, rumors about Kamala Harris appearing on Joe Rogan. Do you have any update? Donald Trump said on the Full Send podcast with the Nelk Boys, he said it was going to happen. We're down to like 15 days before the election at this point. Is it going to happen? Is he going to be on Joe Rogan?
Well, I don't have any news to break for you today on that count, Will, I'm sorry to say, but I do know you're right. The president has said publicly that he intends to do it. He wants to do it. And I think I'll just leave it there and let him be the final word on that. We do have 15 days left to go for the campaign. And that's a show that a lot of people listen to. I think a lot of people like Joe Rogan and like what he has to say. And I'll just leave it right there with what the president said. And if there's any news, I'm sure that it'll be forthcoming from the campaign.
You're going to leave it right there, but I'm not going to leave it right there just yet, Tim.
You
I have a
you
follow-up
have
question.
your own job. Yeah, go ahead.
I have questions, and you have answers.
Sure.
This, though, allows you to broaden it a little bit, okay? I am curious. I have my own personal experience. I've interviewed Donald Trump, so I can bring my experience to enlighten this question. But say Trump were to accept an invitation from Joe Rogan, do you anticipate there would be any stipulations on an interview like that? Does Trump put stipulations on interviews?
No, I have never encountered, I've never heard of it, any stipulations. There aren't any guardrails. I can't remember a time where he ever went into an interview and said, I'm not going to talk about this, or we set ground rules for that. I mean, look, if news is breaking now that Kamala Harris, she's got a town hall with Anderson Cooper on CNN later this week. Now, members of the press corps are telling us that other media other than Anderson Cooper is barred from being in the studio when all that goes down. I mean, we never set any rules like that. I mean, Donald Trump goes and sits down for a long form interview like a podcast. There aren't any ground rules, and I think you can tell by the way that the questions come, if you've ever seen or heard any of these things, that no, there aren't any guardrails, any rules, any stipulations of any kind. Donald Trump wouldn't stand for that. He's not the kind of guy who is going to go in and tell anybody, oh, I'm afraid to talk about this or that. That's just not who he is. Like your last segment, you've been talking about how authentic he is. Well, that's the opposite of authenticity, isn't it? When you say, I don't want to talk about that, so no, it's just not his style.
Right.
It never has been.
There's one stipulation, right, that you and I should probably acknowledge, and that is perhaps time. Like Joe Rogan does a 3-hour podcast, and he is running for president. So I mean, I don't know if Donald Trump would put a time stipulation on it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if you guys were like, look, Joe, we can give you an hour. Something that one stipulation.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how if there are conversations about that. I'm not the one who's doing that, and if that is even happening,
Right.
I don't know. But I mean, everyone knows what the ground rules are of whatever interview it is that you go into. Like, for example, but you don't want a situation like what Kamala Harris gets herself in at the Bret Baier interview the other day, where when I was watching it live. When it was being broadcast, you could tell that Bret was looking off screen, off camera a little bit, because somebody was distracting him and somebody was trying to get his attention. That would never happen for our team, for Donald Trump, where you would have people frantically waving, oh, we have to end it, we have to end it. Because to me, that indicates that it was not Kamala Harris who was in charge of that segment or her time. And let me tell you, if Donald Trump is involved, whether it's a media interview or anything else, he's the one who's in charge of the situation. I can tell you that.
No doubt.
And if he wants to keep going, he's going to keep going.
No doubt. Okay, but I want to shed a little bit. I'm going to put a little more flesh on those bones through my own personal experience. You're exactly right about Kamala Harris. What was happening most likely there, and I don't get to see the off camera, but Brett testifies to this, and I don't get to see the off camera interaction. But this would be for the course. It's not unique to Kamala, but it's probably acute with Kamala. Handlers off camera doing this with their hands, making circles, rap. It's over. I've had that happen to me in various interviews, and I think that would happen with most politicians. With Trump, so I've done an interview with Trump. I've done 90 minutes with him. Zero stipulations whatsoever about what could be talked about. So I asked you that question because you have insight on other interviews, right? It's not just the one that I was able to have with him. But I think you're right. In watching them, you can tell there's no stipulations. The interviewer has the freedom to go wherever they want. On the time thing, what I do see with Donald Trump is this. He may get told, we got to go. But it's not because you're like 15 minutes into a 20-minute interview. It's because you're at 60 minutes, and then he turns. This happened in our interview at Fox and Friends Weekend, and it happened in his interview with Andrew Schultz on his comedy podcast, where Trump literally turns off camera and goes, let's give him some more time. We can give him some more time and keep this going. I'm enjoying this. But it's not about cutting it short. It's about there's a prescribed length of time, and then Donald Trump allows extra time more often than cutting it short.
Yeah, I mean, look, to be clear about it. Sometimes the schedule is what it is, and you got to go somewhere, and sometimes maybe he's got to get on the plane and fly somewhere, and you have to be in a different state by, in a couple of hours. So there are realities of the schedule, but there is no gaming the system like we saw, and I think Brett had talked about this too, on the Fox interview with Kamala Harris, where she knew that he was up against a hard deadline of 6 p.m. because that's when his show starts, right? So the interview clearly has to be over so that they can air it in the show that begins at 6 p.m. And she doesn't roll in there until like 5:15, which automatically cuts the window of how long the interview is going to be. And then 20 minutes into it, they start waving it off, saying, "Oh, no, we have to stop now." I mean, that's just gaming it, obviously, and that's trying to limit the window of how many questions they're going to get. And don't you know that if Donald Trump had ever gone into a CNN town hall or any kind of sit down with NBC or otherwise, if he said, X, Y, and Z topics are off limits, you don't think that those networks would have broadcast what the rules were that he demanded? Of course, everyone would have heard,
right.
Oh, Donald Trump insisted that we don't talk about this or that. That never happens, and no one ever broadcasts that because you don't make those stipulations going in. That's what weak candidates do. And I think everybody knows pretty well Donald Trump is not a weak person. He's very confident, and he'll take all questions from all comers. I mean, he does it underneath the wing of his plane. He does it at press conferences. He's down in North Carolina today holding a press conference. They're talking about the hurricane response and all that, lack of hurricane response, I should say. He's not afraid of anything. He's been a candidate or serving as president for 9 years now. The guy is fearless. Everybody knows that. There's nothing he won't entertain a question.
Tim, can you just give me an idea? Like, what's obviously changed for both candidates, I would say, over the last 2 weeks is the quantity of interviews being done. Like, everyone is everywhere at this moment. And every time I look up, Trump is on another podcast. He's on another, like, I don't know if you can do this, but, like, what's a typical day? I mean, we're always marveling, and I don't mean this in a sycophantic way. I think it's truly a human marvel, the energy level to get so much done. But, like, is there a typical day? And what would it be? Like, how many different media interviews, how many rallies, how many different states?
I don't know if there is a typical day because each day is packed with a lot of things and there is a lot of variety. But, yesterday, the day in Pennsylvania, I think on Sunday in Pennsylvania should be put into a time capsule. And if there is such a thing as the Retail Politics Hall of Fame, then yesterday in the Trump campaign should go do that. He did a media interview first, and then he goes down to you've already talked about it, the Bucks County, the legendary Hall of Fame, McDonald's, working the fry vat, and then also manning the drive-through window. He goes from that to a town hall in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, hosted by Sage Steele. And then from there, he goes to Pittsburgh, where he just owned the Steelers game and had the crowd chanting the USA chants and all that when they realized that he was there. Just start to finish, a fantastic campaign, a day on the campaign trail in the most crucial of battleground states, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania yesterday was Trump country. We believe that Donald Trump already has a lead in Pennsylvania, and a day like yesterday only serves to make that lead stronger. That, I think, it shows you the variety of different things that he does during the course of any given campaign day. Today's entirely different. Today, he's down in North Carolina in the hurricane-ravaged regions of Western North Carolina talking about what's going on the ground there. Tomorrow will be different yet again, and so on and so on and so on. And it's going to, this coming Sunday, he'll be at Madison Square Garden, for God's sake, and that's going to be a political event unlike any other. Center of the universe, the most famous sports arena on the face of the planet and in human history. Maybe the Roman Colosseum might have been as famous for a period of time, but Madison Square Garden that's it, man. If you're playing Madison Square Garden, you've made it. So the variety that each day shows is really just amazing. And contrast that with the cookie cutter campaign that Kamala Harris has been trying to run, keeping her safe at all times. The other day, on Saturday, I don't understand this, Will. I hope maybe you can get to the bottom of it. She had this rally in Detroit, Michigan on Saturday, where for a day and a half they had advertised that Lizzo was going to be there, pop star Lizzo. So Lizzo does show up, but she didn't do any songs. She didn't do any music. All she did was just introduce the introducer. She didn't even introduce Kamala Harris. And then when Harris gets on stage, she cut her remarks short. She only spoke for 6 minutes and 36 seconds. What is that? I just don't understand what that's all about. And then they hustled her off stage, and that was that, and she moved on to the next one. I mean, that to me sounds like a candidate that's phoning it in now. 6.5 minutes? That's insane. You know how many hours those people were standing there? They had to go through security and all that stuff. They probably committed 5 hours of their time to hear her speak for 6.5 minutes, and Lizzo didn't even sing? I don't get it. I don't get it.
You've inspired a new Will Cain Show segment, I'm almost certain. Like, what are the most iconic stadiums in human history? The Roman Coliseum. Does MSG actually rate number 2? We're going to have to do that in the future here on the Will Cain Show. Interesting. Okay, Lizzo. So most polling suggests at this point, Donald Trump is doing very, very well with men. And speaking of celebrity endorsements, some surprising ones for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania this week, as he had former Pittsburgh Steelers Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell in support of Trump.
Yeah, that was great.
At the same time, Tim, polling suggests Kamala Harris is doing very well with women. If I forced you and you told me the truth about where is your campaign the weakest and where could you shore up, I think that's where we would both land. I think it would be some segment of the vote among women. And if I asked you, where would you go to try to make gains there? I'm curious what that answer would be, because all this media that Trump is doing, a lot of it, by the way, is playing to men. All those podcasts we can rattle off, it's largely male audiences. I'm just curious, like, I'm sure he needs an invitation, and I bet he would accept it to do something like Call Her Daddy or some podcast, with a big female audience. But how can you guys reach women?
Well, I think a lot of the overriding issues, what polling tells us and what voters have been, men and women, and since your question is focused on women, we'll say that. What women are telling pollsters is basically the same as what they're telling men, is that they care about the economy, they care about inflation, and they care about the southern border in the way that it affects the lives of the people who live in their neighborhoods. Women care very much about the cost of food. They care. Women who have children care about the cost of, say, diapers or baby formula if they're young children. They also care about cereal. How much does a gallon of milk cost to feed the kids cereal as they get older? They care about the kitchen table issues. They also care about, they don't want violent, illegal migrants roaming their streets, committing mayhem and committing murders. But women care about the fact, they see the news. They know that Laken Riley and others were murdered by illegal aliens that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden let into their communities and let into the United States. They know all of that. So in many respects, I think that the issues are the same. People care about the economy. They care about inflation. They care about the idea that they don't, nobody can get by with a single income family anymore. They're all the same issues. And I think
all
how
that's
you message
true.
it might be a little
Absolutely.
bit different. How you message it might be a little different.
That's the key.
Right, sure. And so that's why we have.
So real quick,
Laura
Tim, let me
Trump
jump
on a
in.
bus
I
tour.
think that's
okay. Good. Go ahead, Will.
Oh, I hear you there. You actually started to get to part of that answer. Laura Trump and Sage Steele on a bus tour. I hear that.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen that, and that's part of how you message that. I think you're right, and I think so. On the issues that matter, whether or not you're a man or a woman. So the question is how, and you started to get there before I interrupted on how you get that out, because the experience with Donald Trump is largely characterized as such. You have a certain picture of him. It's a picture painted by CNN or the mainstream media. It's largely a false image. And when you get longer, deeper exposure to Donald Trump, instead of the manufactured image of Donald Trump, it is awakening for many, not all, but it's awakening for many. And so for him to have the opportunity to share that message over those issues that you just highlighted to women makes me wonder about how can you find those opportunities to have that longer conversation in a place where they are, but they're used to getting the manufactured image of Donald Trump.
Right. And so that's when you use what we call in campaign world surrogates. And Laura Trump obviously is the daughter-in-law, married to Eric Trump, daughter-in-law of President Trump. And she's been on a bus tour in battleground states, was in North Carolina with Sage Steele and a whole cast of prominent women supporters of Donald Trump, and talking to women, and especially in North Carolina. What do people care about in the western parts of North Carolina today? They care about recovering from the hurricane, because the FEMA response from the Biden and Harris administration has been awful. So that's what they've been down there doing, listening to women down there. This is a tour that is aimed at women, and hopefully will bring some in. But let me tell you a little anecdote here. I was on the Trump campaign in 2020 also, and I think it was early in 2020, it was pre-COVID, maybe 2019 even. And I was at a rally, and I want to say it was in New Hampshire, and I sat next to Stephanie Ruhle from MSNBC. She had been to a rally. She came to that rally, and she had never been to one before. And I sat next to her while the president was speaking, and actually in the lead up in the pre-program and all that stuff. And she was looking around and seeing all the people that were there, families with children and all that. And she turned to me and she said, "This is not what I was led to believe goes on at a Trump rally." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, I'm sorry to use this word because Kamala Harris has kind of commandeered it. But she said, "I'm looking around and it is positively joyous around here. There are people with children. There are families here." And I said, "Yeah, what did you think was going to be here?" And she said, "Well, not this." And so when Kamala Harris, and I think I've seen her say this on the stump a couple of times now, she is openly inviting people. She says, "I want y'all to watch a Trump rally," right? She's encouraging people to watch a Trump rally as though she thinks that will somehow be bad for us. We think that's great. And actually, I know some Democrat consultants have told them, you put too much Donald Trump in your TV ads, it's actually helping him. When people actually watch Donald Trump and hear what he says, and don't listen to the caricature of what MSNBC tells them what they're going to see if they did watch. When people actually watch, they love what he has to say. Even Stephanie Ruhle from MSNBC, when she witnessed it in person, was shocked. because it's not what her Manhattan friends told her she was going to see if she ever went to a Trump rally. So I think, honestly, if women would listen to what Donald Trump has to say about the economy and about securing the border and what securing the border means to actual neighborhoods where people live, then I think people will get sold on that message. And we encourage everyone, of course. We always want everyone to watch. But we think they should, in this one instance, take Kamala Harris's advice. Yes, do watch a Trump rally.
That's a fascinating anecdote. You've given me several today, which I really appreciate. Sadly, on that anecdote, it doesn't seem to have changed the behavior of Stephanie Ruhle. But there's a lot of There's a lot
she still goes on the air.
There's a lot of complicating factors, right?
Yeah, I know.
She's still got a job. She's still got a job.
Hey, maybe we're winning Stephanie Ruhle over, but that didn't happen. No.
Fascinating conversation about the campaign in the final 2 weeks here in the race for presidency and the way that campaigns work through their messaging in the media. And I really appreciate the conversation today. Tim Murtaugh, thanks for being on the Will Cain Show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Will. I had a good time.
Okay, take care. To Tim's point about Pennsylvania, by the way, Real Clear Politics today shows, I believe, at the first time in this presidential election, all 7 battleground states now, Real Clear Politics polling average, now have Donald Trump in the lead. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, all now for the first time leaning approximately a point to 2 points for Donald Trump. All right, let's get into fans celebrating the season-ending and career-threatening injury to Deshaun Watson, and Texas fans throwing water bottles on the field and it working to change the refs. Plus, the fellas try to sell me on Yankees-Dodgers. Coming up on the Will Cain Show. Two biggest markets in the United States now squaring off in the World Series. And yet, I need you to sell me on Dodgers-Yankees. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube, and just join the community. Become a member of the Willisha. Deshaun Watson, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, ruptured his Achilles yesterday. When he went down, the crowd celebrated. Afterwards, his replacement, Jameis Winston, took to the microphone, and he had some pretty interesting things to say about this moment in Cleveland. Listen.
I am very upset with the reaction to a man that has had the world against him for the past 4 years, and he put his body and life on the line for this city every single day, regardless of your perception, regardless of what you thought should happen with him. He committed every single day that I've been here to be the best that he can be for this team. But the way I was raised, I will never pull on a man when he's down. But I will be the person to lift him up. And I do not want the treatment that Deshaun Watson has received from these passionate fans. I know you love this game. When I first got here, I knew these were some amazing fans. But Deshaun was treated badly. And now he has to overcome another obstacle.
So there's Jameis Winston. I mean, all right. Look at tinfoil. Already nodding.
That's your
along.
boy,
That's
Patrick?
his own personal hero.
That's your boy?
He makes me feel like I've been a bad person for cheering against.
He talks like a
Deshaun
cult
Watson
leader.
This whole time.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'm all in. I'm
That
drinking
was
the Kool-Aid,
weird.
baby. Give it to me, Jameis. Gatorade.
Weird, dog.
Weird.
He is a source. He is weird. There is no doubt. He's also a source. He might be your world's number one source of unintentional comedy.
Yes.
Like if you see a Jameis Winston clip or interview, you need to watch because it's going to be entertaining. It's a roller coaster of watching, trying to decide, is he in on the joke? And I think the answer is he is not. He is not in on the joke. But despite the weird delivery, I really like what he has to say. And I actually think the dude is super sincere. And I actually think the guy is incredibly authentic. He's being real. He is just really weird. And in the end, I find him endearing. And I really like what he has to say here about Deshaun Watson. I know about all the allegations about Deshaun Watson. I know all the stuff, right? All the massages that turned into sexual harassment, all that weird stuff. I still think it's unseemly for a crowd to cheer a man blowing up his Achilles, right? Can we all agree? James, you turned me on to an account that I love. I love Ghetto Gronk. He's hilarious on Instagram and Twitter. But he went all in. And I got to tell you, and he acknowledges that he knows he's going all in on something that is pretty unseemly, but I don't like it. I do not like people responding in this way to Deshaun Watson.
I think karma is a very real thing in life, and the universe throws back at you what you give to it, and just the sheer numbers of what Watson did are just it's absurd.
That's why they're the Cleveland Browns, too. I mean, they just keep acting like that.
Wait,
They'll never
you're saying Deshaun Watson is the recipient of karma?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I will say I have no idea how he could go from a top 5 quarterback to the complete fall off that he's having, where he's legitimately the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know. But I would say if you believe in karma, be careful, because those fans, you're going to get karma here. Like you do that. If you believe in karma, and I don't know that I do. I actually think I don't believe in karma. I mean, you're going to get another 32 straight quarterbacks who are failures in Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like the record, the famous jersey of all the guys and the guy that taped the number of quarterbacks they've had. I mean, gosh, is it since Bernie Kosar? I don't even know where you start the list. Like, when's the last good quarterback in Cleveland? I mean, he's one of the names on the list that are a failure.
Love Johnny Football, man.
You may have to go back to Bernie Kosar, Jeff Garcia, maybe. I don't know, where Cleveland had a real quarterback. And I'm just telling you, you boo people like that, you're going to keep the list going.
They just
I know you don't think so, Patrick, because
they just added another 20 years
name.
of poor play by doing that.
Ironically.
Yeah, and I know Patrick, I know you think they have it solved now that Jameis is the quarterback, but
No, but I was going to say, ironically, Cleveland started the bottle ban in the NFL of beer bottles after a game against Jacksonville. And it probably coincides with their bad luck and quarterbacks. So starting with
so what are you saying?
I'm just saying,
I mean,
like, it just seems and then they're booing. I don't know. I mean, maybe Texas is going to be, I don't know.
Yeah, I see what you're doing. Wow. You're not done. You are going to get 100% fired. So you're saying Texas is going to go down the path of Cleveland because the Longhorn fans threw water bottles on the game. Just a refresher for anyone joining us halfway through.
Patrick,
no, you're just adding it to the list of trolls that you put out publicly starting Saturday night.
And they're not
Face
deleted.
mask. Probably should throw some more bottles on the field.
Patrick, you need a burner.
Trolling. Why don't you just tell us about your burner, James? It's not a burner if you tell us about your burner.
He brings it up constantly. Constantly. Might as well just put your face on it now.
James, if I offered you this, a raise, or 20,000 new followers on X, which would you choose?
Oh, I know.
Well, the 20,000 followers is going to happen, so I'll choose the raise.
Wow, the hubris. The hubris.
I'm curious, James, is your career path to become a social media star?
No, I don't know. It's just fun.
Why?
It's addicting. The dopamine levels that Twitter gives you. It's like, oh, shit.
Well, to indulge Patrick, here's what happened as the University of Texas lost to Georgia on Saturday night. This fascinating moment where a Georgia wide receiver runs a pattern. He openly runs into the Texas defensive back and shoves him. Oddly, when he shoves him into the path of a terribly thrown ball by Carson Beck, Georgia's quarterback. The Texas DB catches it, runs it back to the Georgia 9. Huge potential game-changing moment in the second half because while Texas got dominated in the first half, it looked like they were threatening a comeback in the second half. But the referees called defensive pass interference. Now, the minute they showed this on the screen, everybody was like, what? Like, there's legitimately nothing that the Texas defensive back did wrong. Nothing. And the commentators all agreed. My Twitter feed blew up. Every football analyst, like, this is a horrible, horrible call. And even though Texas was losing, it did feel like it could impact the outcome of the game because it's such a big moment. Like, it's such a big moment in the midst of Texas gaining momentum. Texas fans start throwing water bottles all over the field from the student section. Now, I got to tell you, and I'm a Texas fan, so I'm willing to analyze my own hypocrisy. I mean, I didn't think that's the biggest deal in the world. I didn't think it's like it's not classy, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Come on. But it did seem to cause a delay in the game long enough for the refs to get together and talk and then shockingly reverse their call afterwards. To the right call, we should say. To the right call. They got it right. But the only thing I'll give you, Patrick, is it does look like the refs caved to the fans. That's what it appeared. You don't really think this is like sports at its worst. Fans throwing water bottles on the field.
This is the Malice in the Palace. This is up there with some of the most embarrassing moments in sport. And the SEC is even coming down. I mean, like, if you guys don't shape up, no more alcohol sales. We're in a bad place.
Oh,
come on. And it's not glass bottles, right?
That was pretty ticky-tack.
It's just plastic.
Yeah,
I
it was
could see it either
bottles,
way.
and
no
it's
one's
water.
going to get hurt.
We have it on the screen.
Well, maybe not.
We have it on the screen right now. Yeah, it wasn't at players. It wasn't at anyone. That's ugly if you start throwing objects at people. It's into an empty end of the end zone.
You could get hurt. People could get hurt.
It's a sports tradition, too. That's happened for years in sports. Like,
you don't even believe what you're saying. You don't believe any of this. You don't believe it. You just want to hate on Texas like everybody else, and you want to troll me. Those are the two things you hope to accomplish in this. You don't believe
it's the karma circle coming back.
Right.
You didn't deserve the playoff last year.
For the game. Oh, this is what it all comes back to. It's all going to be. For the record, you think Florida State belonged in and Texas belonged out of the playoffs last year?
I don't care which one.
That's right. You don't care. You don't want justice. You don't want it to be right. You just want your team in.
Yeah.
There was an argument over Alabama. There was no argument over Texas last year. For the game, Texas was totally outplayed.
Yeah.
Georgia was better. Georgia was incredible on defense. Texas offensive line was bad. Quinn Ewers was bad. I don't think we have a quarterback controversy in Austin. Arch wasn't incredible when he came in because the Georgia defense was so good. Again, I'm not taking away from Quinn's play. It's concerning. But here's what I would say. I'm taking no pessimism pills. Like, I think Texas in a rematch, I feel pretty confident, actually. To be dominated like that, I'm either a huge homer to say that, or here's what happened. That Texas offense was so bad that Georgia started every drive inside of the Texas 50. Have you seen the lineup? They had scoring drives of 13 yards, 34 yards, like over and over. They had one drive that was legit, that was 89 yards. And I give them credit for that drive. But otherwise, the Texas defense was really pretty awesome. Held them. Carson Beck, not good. Okay, I've said that all season, and I appear to be right on this. The question is, would Texas's offense be able to show up in a rematch? And I'm going to say they're not going to be as bad as they were. So I'd feel, and by the way, I think it probably will be the SEC championship game, Georgia-Texas, and I'll feel pretty good. So, am I a homer or am I right?
Homer.
Somewhere in between.
I mean, you talked about
you
talked about Texas before this like they were invincible and could not be touched. Like they were this, otherworldly team that you put number one every week. And now,
well, they deserve to be number one.
I think he's fair. I think he backed off a little on the there's some stuff to do, but they're still a top national contender.
All right, who would win in this game right now? Texas right now or the Dallas Cowboys as they stand?
No, shut up. I'm scared about Vanderbilt, to be honest. Texas has Vanderbilt this weekend.
Yeah.
And I am scared of Vanderbilt. How are things at 1-6, by the way? Just curious.
Oof.
What's Florida State? 1-6? Are you guys 1-6?
I'm numb. Can't hurt me. We
No,
just reversed the curse.
Notre Dame's hanging out at 12 right
been,
there. I'm just saying.
We should have been in the playoffs. Now you can't win 2 games. Crazy.
versus reverse.
Huh. All right. It is a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. Two biggest markets in baseball. It's got to be what was hoped for the MLB. At least half of the Cain Show staff is super in on the World Series. They're both Yankees fans. So I want you two to give me, this is the problem. I will submit to you, you could ask for no better matchup. Meaning, I'll be honest, if it had been any other matchup that didn't include the Texas Rangers, I don't know that I would watch the World Series. I might, but because it's Yankees-Dodgers, much better chance. So sell me on this series, you Yankee fans in New York.
I mean, we got a really exciting Yankee team going on. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton's hitting out of his shoes. It's amazing. I mean, it's the two biggest market teams, as we know. It's the teams that faced off the most in World Series. You got Shohei Ohtani on the other side. I mean, both teams are just insane. It's what should have happened at the end of this season. The two best teams are in the World Series, and that's why it's going to be very exciting, whether it's obnoxious or not, because Yankee fans are obnoxious, Dodger fans are obnoxious. It's still going to be really fun.
Will, you're a history guy,
It's
right,
the most
too?
common James, it's the most common World Series matchup, but it hadn't happened in forever.
Yeah.
Right? So I am interested in the history.
And it feels like it had last happened in 1981. It feels like we've been waiting most of our lives for it, it's because we have. They've had the best two records in baseball since that time in 1981. And I don't know how you tell the story or the history of baseball without talking about these two teams. They pop up constantly throughout
did
the
he
memories.
write this
How
down?
could they not? These two franchises are
What are you
everywhere
doing?
throughout history. Mickey Mantle, Derek Jeter, and Lou
Stop.
Gehrig versus Duke Snider, Sandy Koufax, and Fernando's Venezuela. That's what
Stop.
baseball is.
Stop.
He's just reading.
So, no, there's part of what he just did that I appreciate and part that I want to indict. The part that I appreciate is he cleared his throat in the middle of it. I noticed it. It was very nice that we didn't have to listen to that. He stopped, he cleared his throat, and it cleared up. That was ChatGPT, wasn't it? This is the part I indict. I guarantee you he used ChatGPT for what he just said on air.
MLB.com, here is why Yankees-Dodgers World Series is a must-watch.
Will Leach.
Wow.
Shout out
Will
Will.
Leach.
Yeah.
But I wasn't reading it word for word. I was jumping around to the points that would endear to a history.
I told him to go for it.
Expert like Will.
He's a big ChatGPT guy. I'm surprised he actually read from source material, much less Will Leach. Are you friends with Will Leach, Dan?
No. I just read his name off there. I don't
Who is it? Oh, yeah, it is.
But you won't watch? I mean, it's
I'll watch.
Yankees,
I'll watch.
Dodgers, man.
There's something to those two
I'll
stadiums
watch.
too. The
I
history
know.
of those stadiums
It's
and the
true.
gravitas of it. I mean,
It's going to be electric, man.
yeah, it
I mean,
does
it's-
a lot for the city.
It's like that Bryce Harper, the Phillies in the World Series. It's going to be like that.
Times 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yankees-
I'll watch. Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge,
Yeah.
Los Angeles, New York.
Even though Judge can't
it's,
hit.
It's
so.
the best you could hope for.
A Yankee Stadium next Monday
and it
night
will
is going to be something else.
We
It
all
will be
going?
on Fox.
Should we go? Should we all go?
It is on Fox. Can our bosses make that happen?
It's about $1,400 per ticket in the highest section.
I don't know.
Press passes.
Do you
I
think
don't
they'll
wanna
just
answer
let
that
us in
question
there
'cause-
with our Fox badges?
Yeah.
I don't want to answer that question because I don't want to get assigned to be there Monday night. All right. Yankees, Dodgers, World Series. 15 days until the election, 2 weeks until we begin the count on the race for president. We're going to do this again, same time, same place tomorrow. I'll see you next time.